The living room was glowing that night, warm light spilling from the chandelier, the air thick with the smell of vanilla frosting and fresh lilies from the dining table. Every seat was taken, the hum of conversation weaving with bursts of laughter. In the center of it all, Mom sat in her favorite armchair, a mountain of wrapped gifts at her feet. Phones were already out, flashes going off before she even touched the next box. And then Vivian stepped forward. Perfect hair, perfect dress, carrying a glossy white box wrapped with a ribbon so flawless it looked straight out of a magazine. She knelt beside Mom, lowering her voice just enough to sound intimate, but loud enough for the room to hear. "Happy birthday, Mom. I wanted this to be special." The ribbon slid away with a whisper, tissue paper crinkling under Mom's hands. And then gasps, applause, a designer handbag, the one she'd been talking about for years. The gold hardware caught the light, sparkling like jewelry. "Vivian, you shouldn't have." Mom laughed, holding it up high so every camera could catch it. "It's perfect." My sister smiled like the sun itself had chosen her, soaking in every second of praise. I stayed quiet, because the truth was the receipt for that bag had my name on it, and the money, pulled directly from my account. My name is Lena Tran, 29 years old, an interior designer in the city, 3 hours away from my parents' house. My sister, Vivian, has always been the perfect one. At least that's the version my parents like to present. She's the daughter who remembers anniversaries, who shows up with flowers for no reason, who posts perfectly lit family photos online with captions about gratitude and love. And me, I'm the one who works too much, who's always busy. Those are the polite words. What they mean is, I don't orbit around this house the way Vivian does. I don't play to the audience. What they don't know, or maybe don't care to remember, is how many birthdays, last-minute emergencies, and quiet financial rescues I've been behind. Times when I covered bills, booked repairs, or replaced something broken without asking for a dime back. Times when I let someone else take the thanks because it was easier than explaining. And I've never minded. Not really. But there's a difference between letting someone take the spotlight and watching them stand in the center of the room, taking applause for something you know you did, for something you planned, paid for, and meant as your own gift, not theirs. That night, I realized Vivian wasn't just good at playing the perfect daughter. She was good at making sure no one saw the strings she was pulling to stay in that role. 2 weeks before the party, I was on my lunch break, scrolling through my phone when I saw it, the handbag. The exact one Mom had been hinting at for years. Limited stock. The kind of item that disappeared in hours. I clicked add to cart without hesitation. I knew the color, the size, the style. I even paid extra for gift wrapping, the kind with heavy ribbon and thick embossed paper. The confirmation email landed in my inbox seconds later. My name, my card, my money. I set the delivery date for the morning of Mom's birthday, so it would be sitting right there in the living room when the guests arrived. Shipping address, my parents' house. It was perfect, personal, thoughtful, something she'd love. That same afternoon, I sent Vivian a text. "Hey, I already ordered Mom's gift. Don't worry about doubling up." The 3 dots appeared for a second, then vanished. She'd read it, but no reply came. I figured she was busy. She'd always been quick to respond in the past. I didn't think twice. I didn't know that silence would be the first thread of the mess waiting for me at the party. The house smelled like vanilla frosting and fresh lilies, Mom's 2 favorites. Someone had set jazz on low in the background, the kind that makes the clinking of glasses sound fancier. Every chair in the living room was full. Aunts and uncles lined the couch. Cousins sat cross-legged on the floor. The coffee table had been pushed back to make space for a low table stacked high with gifts. Vivian stood near the edge of the group, framed perfectly under the chandelier's light. She wore a soft cream dress that matched the ribbon on the box she was holding. A few relatives whispered about how elegant she looked. "This is for you, Mom," she said, stepping forward and kneeling by her chair. Her voice carried just enough to reach the back of the room, warm and practiced. I wanted this to be special. All eyes were on her as she placed the glossy white box into Mom's hands. The ribbon slid off in one smooth motion, the paper crinkling as Mom peeled it back. And then gasps, applause, even a few whistles. The designer handbag gleamed under the light. The gold hardware catching every flash from the phones now pointed at her. "Vivian, you shouldn't have." Mom's smile was wide, her eyes bright. "It's perfect." Vivian pressed a hand to her chest, as if humbled by the moment, her gaze sweeping the room to catch every approving nod. She didn't glance at me once. I stayed in my seat, the smile on my face tight. Inside, a slow burn was building, the kind that doesn't erupt but waits. Mom turned the bag in her hands, admiring every seam, every polished edge. One of her friends leaned forward from the sofa, eyes wide. "Vivian, where on earth did you even find this? These sell out in minutes," she asked, her voice full of impressed disbelief. Vivian's smile froze for a fraction of a second before softening again. "Oh, I have a contact," she said with a small shrug, as if the details didn't matter. A few people nodded, suitably impressed. That's when I saw it. Under the edge of the tissue paper, still clinging to the bottom of the box, was the shipping label. The corner was bent, but my name was there, bold, black letters, printed so clearly it might as well have been lit up. My stomach went cold, my hands tightening around my coffee cup. She hadn't even bothered to remove it. I looked up, and for the first time that night, Vivian's eyes flicked to mine. It was quick, half a second, but long enough for me to see the truth. She knew I'd noticed. And in that instant, it wasn't anger that settled in me. It was clarity. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was deliberate. I waited until the conversation in the living room swelled again, laughter, clinking glasses, someone calling for another round of drinks. Then I quietly slipped out, moving down the hallway toward the guest room. My heels clicked softly against the hardwood. The further I got from the chatter, the more focused my breathing became. By the time I shut the guest room door behind me, it felt like the party was happening in another house entirely. I pulled out my phone and opened my email. The order confirmation was still there, time-stamped 2 weeks ago, billed to my credit card, showing the exact handbag model and the upgraded gift wrapping. Swipe. There was the delivery tracking. Delivered to Mom's address, signed for at 9:42 a.m. I screenshotted every page. Then I opened my messages, scrolled to the text I'd sent Vivian. "Hey, I already ordered Mom's gift. Don't worry about doubling up." Seen. No reply, another screenshot. Finally, I opened the store's app, downloaded the PDF invoice, and zoomed in on the shipping label, my name, my account number, and the same code I'd just seen on the bottom of that box. One by one, I saved them all into a single album labeled gift. No panic, no shaking hands, just precision. When I walked back into that living room, it wouldn't be with anger. It would be with proof. I waited for my moment. Mom was still glowing, holding the handbag on her lap while a few aunts snapped more pictures. Vivian leaned back in her chair, sipping wine, her posture loose like she'd just won something. I stood slowly, phone in hand. "Since everyone loves the gift so much," I said, my voice calm but clear, "I thought you might like to know where it came from." The chatter died almost instantly. Heads turned. A fork clinked against a plate somewhere in the back. I stepped forward and tilted my phone so the nearest guests could see the screen, the invoice, my name, my payment details, the date of purchase. The kind of proof you couldn't argue with. "This is the order confirmation." I continued, swiping to the next screenshot. "Here's the delivery record dropped off at this address at 9:42 a.m., 2 weeks after I paid for it. And here's the text I sent, telling Vivian I'd already bought Mom's gift." A low murmur rippled across the room. Mom's smile faltered as she looked from the phone to Vivian. "Vivian?" she asked, her tone sharper now. My sister's glass paused halfway to her lips. It's just a mix-up, she said, forcing a laugh. I meant to take the credit, I asked softly. The silence after that was heavier than anything I could have planned. Vivian's cheeks flushed, a blotchy red creeping up from her collarbone. She set her wine glass down a little too hard, the stem rattling against the table. It's not what it looks like, she started, her voice higher than usual, the edges fraying. It looks, I said evenly, like you accepted applause for something you didn't buy. A couple of cousins shifted uncomfortably. Someone in the back muttered, "That's pretty clear to me." Mom leaned forward in her chair, handbag still in her lap. "Vivian," she said, her tone clipped, "did you know Lena bought this?" The pause was too long. Vivian's eyes darted around the room, searching for an ally, but no one met her gaze. The warmth she'd been basking in minutes ago had drained away, leaving her exposed. I slid my phone back into my pocket, not because I was done, but because I didn't need to show another thing. "I'm not asking for thanks," I said, my voice steady. "I just think the truth should sit where it belongs." Mom's jaw tightened, but she nodded. "Then let's put it there." The living room felt different now. The music was still playing, but it seemed too loud for the silence between people. The laughter from earlier had vanished, replaced by the faint sound of someone clearing their throat. Mom placed the handbag gently back into its box, sliding the lid on as if she no longer wanted it to be the centerpiece. She didn't look at Vivian. An uncle shifted in his seat, leaning toward me with a quiet, "Should have been your moment from the start." His wife nodded in agreement, her eyes flicking toward my sister with thinly veiled disapproval. Across the room, Vivian busied herself with the wine bottle, pouring a glass for anyone who would take it, her shoulders tense, her smile forced and brittle. No one rushed to fill the silence for her. A few cousins whispered in the corner. One of them caught my eye and gave me the smallest nod, the kind that said, "I saw it too. You did the right thing." I sat back in my chair, not gloating, not smiling, just letting the moment breathe. Control wasn't about raising your voice or demanding recognition. Sometimes it was about letting the truth sit long enough for everyone to feel its weight. When the party began to thin out, I slipped into the kitchen to grab a glass of water. The hum of conversation was muffled now, just a few lingering voices in the living room. I was rinsing the glass when I heard soft footsteps behind me. Mom. She leaned against the doorway, arms crossed loosely, watching me for a moment before speaking. "You should have said something sooner," she said quietly, not sharp, not accusing, but with a trace of regret. I set the glass down, turning to face her. I wasn't sure it would make a difference. Her eyes searched mine. "It does, and I'm sorry for not seeing it earlier." She hesitated, like there was more she wanted to say but couldn't quite find the words. I gave a small, tired smile. "Just don't forget next time." She nodded slowly, almost like she was making a promise to herself as much as to me. Then she stepped forward, giving my arm a brief squeeze before turning back toward the living room. I left that night without the bag. It was never about taking it home. Driving away, the streetlights stretched in long, golden lines across the windshield, and for the first time all evening, I felt light. The gift was still in Mom's hands, but the truth, the real gift, was back where it belonged. And this time, it had my name on it.